There's a few reasons why Venti and the newest weapon banner could be for you, and this video will address 5 most important things. If there's one character in Genshin that keeps on fighting the good fight for the electro element, then it would be our lonely wolf boy. And despite some of the setbacks you will experience in endgame when using an electro character, Razor is able to make up with his insane damage output and staggering claymore attacks. And that's the biggest thing about Razor in particular. The element he aligns with only acts as a utility, less than the actual thing that makes him produce big damage numbers. And he has been seeing a lot of action in teams that capitalize on superconduct or electro charge reactions thanks to the awesome teammates like Diona, Xingqiu, or Kaya. Now, there is of course the challenge of his selfish playstyle, which is similar to other characters like Xiao or Klee, and the most important thing to understand if you're going after Razor is that he will not be able to act as your support, and all the focus will need to be put on him, so building a team is going to be around him and not along with him. Still, even with some of his shortcomings, he is an impressive teammate that will gladly act as your main damage dealer, and because the majority of his damage is based on physical attacks, there's barely any monsters in the game that have good physical resistance, and as of making this video, there's actually no enemies that are immune to physical, so you're basically investing into a well-rounded character when it comes to slaying your enemies. And let's not forget that because he is a claymore user, most of his attacks will stagger enemies and give you better survivability. And for his constellations, each of them will provide a decent chunk of power, but the best ones are definitely going to be the last 3, since reducing enemies' defense, having stronger burst, and getting better energy recharge out of the last constellation will contribute to simply enhancing Razor into an even more deadlier damage dealer. All in all, despite some of the shortcomings that mostly have to do with these elements, he is an insanely good physical damage dealer that will take you on a fun and rewarding journey. The Shy Alchemist will make a return for the 3rd time, and this couldn't get more exciting since she's now sharing the spotlight together with Venti himself, and even though in the past she has been called the budget version of him, this banner will hopefully help change players' opinions because of her true actual role they will get to experience. And that of course would be her true purpose to boost the team's elemental mastery thanks to her both passive talents, and because Melt and Vaporize reactions have the best damage out of all reactions, getting that extra elemental mastery on top leads to awesome results, and this has been tested with various team compositions, one in particular which involves Chongyun's Melt comp that works extremely well together with Sucrose, where she is the staple member of that team. But obviously, the reason why she gets called the budget Venti would be that she does provide the utility to group enemies into one place, but even if she can do this together with her elemental skill and burst, it still gets outclassed by Venti's burst alone, and that is fine because as mentioned before, she's actually there to boost your team's elemental mastery, which works out great for many reactions from early to mid game, and then even serves as a powerful addition to Melt and Vaporize team compositions. And just like any character, she has her own fair share of problems, one of which involves her elemental skill that is mediocre if you haven't unlocked her first constellation, or at least have her equipped with sacrificial fragments, since you definitely want to have 2 chargers of her skill by the minimum in order to get better energy recharge and damage output for her. And yet, she also has access to a lot of great catalysts that also includes the newest Wine and Song weapon, but you'll definitely want to get something that has elemental mastery in its substat, and luckily, Mappamare can be crafted for this particular purpose. So in essence, Sucrose definitely stands strong on her own and acts as a fantastic team member when you're all about utilizing endgame elemental reactions, not to mention she gets even better once you get her last constellation that significantly boosts elemental damage. The previous update of 1.3 has definitely introduced a lot of big changes to Geo, and thanks to the rising popularity of using shields in endgame, Noelle is slowly starting to find her place in Genshin. And part of the reason why she tends to get overlooked would be the case that she doesn't actually generate any elemental energy from her skill, so you're basically left at the mercy of your own teammates to do her own job. Then there's also the fact if you want to use her as your dedicated damage dealer, you really want to unlock her last constellation before investing your resources. But aside from this, she is definitely one of the best characters to use just when you're starting out and especially struggled with the initial abyss floors, and when you're at endgame, you can start focusing more on her as your support damage dealer, even if it means using her burst for the whole duration, which falls into similar territory on how you would use Razor. But because she is a well-rounded character in every aspect, which includes healing, shielding, and even damage dealing, she won't excel at one particular thing, and this might be a problem for some, but on the bright side, a lot of the defense artifacts you obtain can be funneled towards her build, and because of the way stats get randomized on artifacts, this is going to be more than likely scenario for using her because of good defense artifacts you might obtain. So even if Noelle does suffer a little bit from few drawbacks, shields have never been more popular than now, and she can be adapted to many team builds, not to mention few of her constellations, like the 4th or last one, give her a nice boost in damage. And if you want to stay updated on latest powerful combinations and news about Genshin, make sure to follow us on Twitter, the link in the description. The next wave of new weapons have arrived, and there's a lot of surprising and exciting things to discuss about. And the newest 5-star bow is going to be the Elegy for the end, which is more or less a weaponized version of Sucrose. And seeing energy recharge on a 5-star is nothing new, but the passive power is definitely what makes it peculiar, and basically every 22 or so seconds, including the time to build up the sigils, will provide the team with elemental mastery and attack boost that will only get stronger with each refinement. But what's more interesting is the way this bow has been designed, and it screams as a support weapon more than anything else. And you would think that this would be Venti's signature weapon, but in reality, it's actually looking to be very good for any support bow characters like Amber, Diona, Ganyu, or even Fischl. Essentially, this new weapon works really well for those characters who are used in melt or vaporized team compositions, since the damage does fall off with any other reaction when you're in endgame content. Now as for the other two new 4-star weapons, the Wine and Song looks something that's designed for support catalysts in Spiral Abyss that will help you conserve your precious stamina and also reward you with more damage if you do use it for sprinting. It also helps that it has energy recharge for its substat, so you can expect to land more bursts once you have this weapon equipped. But for the more cooler sounding weapon, the Alley Flash, it feels like it was designed for few particular characters that sadly doesn't include Albedo, since it doesn't do much in terms of damage when looking at the substat, but for someone like Bennett, Kaya, or Xingqiu, this might be a superb alternative for them if they're used as their damage supports, and especially for Xingqiu, once the weapon goes live, it will be important to test if his burst gets the additional damage bonus when he's not fielded, because if it turns out to be true, then you can expect to see some awesome vaporized damage builds from this sword. Finally, when taking an overall look at all the featured weapons on this banner, which also includes the Dragon's Bane and Favonius Warbow and Greatsword, the surprising thing about it is that this banner definitely looks to be geared towards endgame players who are interested in powering up their support characters, since we tend to focus on our damage dealers first. And this is actually a good thing, seeing more new weapons that are designed not for just pure damage boost on one character, but instead team-wide effects is what makes it more interesting. If there's one thing Venti loves more than wine and playing a tune, then it would be the sound of his enemies screaming while getting sucked into the deadly vortex of doom. And pretty much everything has been said about him before, with the main takeaway being that he is an absolutely amazing character that keeps on getting better the more gear you give to him, and even without anything equipped, his elemental burst is just too good to be ignored and helps clear monsters in Spiral Abyss much faster and easier. He is also an excellent character for world exploration, thanks to his gliding passive and elemental skill for traversal, so overall, if you still haven't unlocked him, now is your chance to get him. The only thing that probably should get mentioned would be not to get his first constellation, since it's really more of a joke upgrade than anything else, and even then, he is absolutely amazing at 0 constellations, and anything past that would cross over to the whale zone. Now that we have the confirmed date and duration of Venti and the new weapon banner, there's very little chance MiHoYo is going to be planning additional surprise banners, and since we already know that Child is going to be featured together with Rosaria, while at the same time, the remaining 4-star weapon, the Alley Hunter, is probably going to be on the next weapon banner, you should have more than enough factors to help you out in deciding on which banners to summon during the 1.4 update. But if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to this channel by enabling the bell notification on and gently pressing the like button. For more Genshin news, guides, and other fun stuff, make sure to follow us on Twitter, link in the description. Thank you for watching us, and see you in the next video.